Hi guys, this is Meenu. Welcome back to my channel StoryTale. Today I'm going to be talking about vampires. If you have been following my videos, then you do know that I'm obsessed with vampires. I have been in love with them for like ages now. I may have started reading a long time ago, but my love for reading actually started after reading Twilight. I fell in love with Edward the moment I saw him. I'm pretty sure it was especially Robert Pattinson because I've always had a crush on him. It was his charm that actually drawn me to it. But still, I do like to believe that my love for reading actually began with Twilight and its vampires. After reading Twilight, a whole new world opened for me and I never looked back. I have been mesmerized by vampires ever since, and I have read so many great books based on them. There are so many out there. There's the charismatic one, there are the sexy ones, there's the evil one, and so many like that. This genre never stops. But lately vampire trends has been lost somehow. There are not many good books that are coming out which is based on vampires. I have rarely read good vampire books. I have read one, Blood Hunt, but that was also okay now that I think about it. I mean, when I read it, I actually liked it. But over the ones I have realized that was not that great. It was an okay book for me. That is why I never leaned towards the second or the third book. The only good books out there are the continuation of the series that I've already read. So that is why when this book came, I thought, why not give it a try too? I mean, I love vampires. There's not much harm that they can do. This is not a normal book. This is kind of something that I've never read before and never tried before. The book Vampires Never Get Old, Tales with Fresh Bite by Zoreda, Cordova and Natalie C. Parker is actually an anthology. What is an anthology? An anthology is basically a collection of short stories written by various authors. They basically write on a common theme, and this time the theme was vampires. But not just vampires. In this anthology, they are gonna find a fresh new take on vampires. In the past, vampires have been mostly, if not all, basically same. They are male, white and straight, and that was what they needed to change with this anthology. There are various kind of vampires here. They are black, female, transsexual, homosexual. Every author has come out with some kind of a different take on vampires, and I think that was a very fresh take on it. There are 11 stories in this anthology, and I'm not gonna say that I love them all. There were some which were very long and very boring, to be honest, but there are a few that I actually loved. I'm gonna give you a brief review of each and every story, and I really hope you like it. The first story was 7 Nights for Dying by Tessa Graton. This is about a young girl who is becoming vampire over the course of 7 days. I liked how the main character was bisexual, and there were also other characters who were transsexual or pansexual, and I actually liked that. That was again a fresh take on vampires. This story was kind of okay for me. It did not blow my mind or something, but still I was kind of okay with this story. It showed that girls do have a choice to what to do with their life, about teenagers, and how sometimes the world actually puts so much burden on them. So that was something that I actually liked. I'm gonna give this story a 3 star because that was again an okay story for me. The next story is The Boys from Blood River by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the story that I liked the most. I do not remember the names of the characters because there's so many, so I'm just gonna say main character. Our main character here is native and gay, and he is bullied for that. That is why he gets depressed and sing this song which is meant to call up these vampires which are called the boys from the blood river, and this song is basically to summon them in order to help him. What he never realizes is that help never comes without a cost. These vampires needed him to perform a ritual in which he needed to take someone's life, and that someone has to be very close to him. I really like this take on vampires, especially the legend that was associated with them. I actually liked the town and how spooky it was. This story was 4 stars for me because it intrigued me the most. The next story is Mirror, Windows and Selfies by Shiro. This is about a vampire who was on a run with his family because he was very unique. He was one of those vampires who was born instead of being turned, and that is why he was hunted for it. His parents keeps him protected, but they also keep him like a prisoner. He never realizes the actual story and the truth behind it until he meets this handsome vampire across the lake. He's kind of drawn to him and he feels very different around him, and that is when he realizes the truth about his parents and about his lineage. Again, this was a very unique story, and the way it was written was very different too. The story is told from the chats that the vampire has in this forum where he talks to other human and tells them his story. Again, this was a very interesting take. I'm gonna give this 4 stars. The next story is Senior Year Sucks by Julie Murphy. This is about a fat cheerleader girl who is also a vampire slayer. She has been hunting vampires for a very long time, but she wants kind of a normal life too. That is why she is in high school. One night when she was returning home from a game, she meets this vampire who is kind of different than she actually thinks how vampires is. She finds herself instantly drawn to her, and in high school their love story began. There was not much substance to this story. There was nothing much to it. Still, it was an okay kind of story. It was not bad. It did not draw out. It was kind of very short, so it was not that difficult to read. For me, this was again a 3 star because again it was an okay story. The next story is House of Black Sapphires by Doniel Clayton. This is about a black vampire family who moves around a lot because maybe they are in some kind of danger or something. I do not know. We do not get a lot of backstory of the characters. But this is about a black woman with 3 or 4 daughters. I do not remember how many were there. But there was one in particular. Her name was B. I do not know why I remember that name. But these vampires are called eternal women and they have very dark origin and are very powerful. They are actually very difficult to kill and there's only shadow barons who are able to kill them. This is kind of enemies to lovers kind of story. Shadow barons falls in love with the eternal women and they seal it with a kiss. That's it. That is the whole story of it. This story would have worked for me if it had been a little bit stretched more. But anyway, this was an okay story, so I'm gonna give it 3 stars. The next story is The Boy and the Belle by Heidi. This is again one of the creepiest stories in this anthology. The main character here is transsexual and he's trying to hide that secret. Every night he goes grave digging and then he hears this bell. This bell comes with a historical fact. In the old times, people used to bury deaths with bells in case they turn out to be not dead. They can ring this bell if they are alive and people will dug them out after that. But when that bell rang and our main character went to dig up that grave, he never realized that he's gonna meet a vampire. Like I said, this story is kind of creepy but still liked it. It had kind of this classical short story kind of vibe which I actually enjoyed. That is why I'm gonna give this story 3.5 stars. The next story is Bestiary by Laura Ruby. This was one of the most dull story for me. It did not work for me at all. This is some sort of metaphor between animals and predators. I do not know. I did not understand the story. It was so boring and so dull. I didn't like the main character. I didn't like the rambling she had in her head. There's nothing much to the story. It's just about a young vampire girl who works in a zoo and has this special connection with the animals. This story did not work for me at all. That is why I'm gonna give just 2 stars to it. The next story is In Kind by Kayla. I really like this story because this was again a very unique take. It was also has a very different writing style. Much of the story is told from these articles or the news cutouts that we read. The story is about a girl who has degenerative neuromuscular disorder and that is why she has been on wheelchair for a very long time. Her father killed her, calling it a mercy killing, but he never realized that his daughter is gonna come back soon. Because of the disorder, the girl can never actually walk even after she has been turned into vampire. Because of her disorder, the girl is still bound to her wheelchair even though she's a vampire now, and I actually like that. The vampire does not need to be perfect all the time. Just because she has a disorder, that does not make her any less of a vampire. Her father called it a mercy killing and called it a favor, so she returned it in kind. I'm gonna give this story 4.5 stars because I was most impressed with this one. The next story is A Guidebook for the Newly Sired Desi Vampire by Samira Ahmed. I really like this Indian take on vampires. I was actually kind of impressed by it. At first I had this big smile on my face while reading the story because I'm an Indian and if I get any Indian element in the book, I get very excited for it. And Samira Ahmed has done a very great job in writing this Desi vampire. I really liked how she used some Indian and Hindi terms which I absolutely loved. But after a while it kind of dragged on. I mean, it should have been limited to fewer words. I mean, after a time it gets kind of dragged on and kind of becomes very boring. But I'm an Indian and I'm always gonna be excited for anything Indian in any international book, so I'm gonna give this 4 stars. The next story is First Kill by Victoria Schwab. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the surname, but I'm never good with pronouncing them anyway. This is again one of the stories where enemies turns lover. There are 2 girls in high school who have kind of crush on each other, but they do not know each other's real identity. They are drawn to each other. That is why 60 seconds in a closet was a win-win situation for them. But in the dark, they realize each other's true nature, and that is when their hunt begins. This was again not a great story or something, but it was still very enjoyable. I really liked the twist in the middle. It was very interesting. For me, this is 3.5 stars because it was okay but enjoyable. The last story is Vampire Never Say Die by Zoreda, Cordova and Natalie Parker. This story was something again I did not like. It was kind of very bland for me. It is about a bunch of Instagram influencers who are hiding that they are vampires, and one of the vampire is talking to this human girl who is like 16 or 17-year old. They have been chatting for 2 years, and that is why the human girl decides to throw her a party in order to get to know her much better. What she never realizes is that the people that she is inviting are actually vampires and they are very dangerous. This story did not work for me. That is why I'm gonna give it 2 stars. The overall rating for this anthology is 3 stars because again I liked few stories and I again didn't like few stories. Even though I like the fresh take on vampires, still I'm searching for something much better than this. I really wish Trend for Vampires come back because I really miss them. I really wish there's some good books out there which are based on vampires and I'm gonna fall in love with vampires all over again. Here's hoping I find some good books in the future based on vampires because I'm really desperate. Until then, do tell me what you thought of this video and what you think of vampires. Of course, do not forget to like and subscribe and click that bell icon if you want to get notified of my videos. Until then, see you.